Hello friends, welcome to Ecoholics YouTube channel. My name is Avinash Agarwal, and in this video I'll be discussing with you 25th October 2024 economics current affairs. So friends, this particular discussion I'm genuinely going to be discussing current affairs with you because what we have usually been doing since 1st May is that we have been discussing very deep topics, very broad articles, very thoughtful and thought-provoking and enriching articles, right? Not exactly very newsy articles, but articles which have been derived from news. So issues which have been derived from news have been discussed, opinions which have been derived from news have been discussed, and a lot of other relevant stuff has been discussed. Opinion articles or editorial articles which are really relevant for the examination, but what I do find is a lot of newsy articles which are extremely relevant from a variety of different viewpoints, right? And today is one of those days where I have found 4 articles, one related to environment and sustainable development, another related to artificial intelligence, and another related to the employment trends in India. So all these 3 articles are very current affairsy articles, very newsy articles, but they are very relevant in the sense that you must understand, right, that what's happening over here, what's happening in this space. Let's start with our discussion. Let's see, right? So this is an extremely important report that you should be aware of. You should be able to cite this in your answers going ahead. Okay, whenever you're writing answers on climate change, on sustainable development, etc., you must be able to mention that United Nations has come out with this report. The title of this report is something that I'm highlighting in green over here. The Emissions Gap Report 2024, No More Hot Air Please. So this particular report by the United Nations. So it is saying that global warming will be up till 3.1 degrees Celsius over the pre-industrial levels if we continue with our as-is policies. If we continue with the current set of environmental policies that we are following, the climate change will be up to the warming will be up to 3.1 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial level, right? So this is something which is extremely important, something which you have to be able to cite in your answers whenever you're writing answers. The report goes on to say that if we implement both conditional as well as non-conditional NDCs, and I will pause over here to just try and explain to you the meaning of all these new terms which are there in front of your screen. So what is NDC? That is nationally determined contribution. So अब जैसे ये हमारा जो Paris agreement है, in this Paris agreement India has not been given, let us say, targets set by United Nations or by developed countries. US has not been given targets set by India or by other developing countries or by United Nations. We have developed our own targets. That is why the term NDC, meaning nationally determined contribution, meaning that India has determined her own targets when it comes to, let us say, doing its bit to reduce greenhouse gas emission, to doing its bit to, help take the world away from this global warming pathway. So that is India's nationally determined contribution, whatever it is, right? And this NDC has also been divided into 2 buckets, conditional and unconditional, right? So if we implement both conditional and unconditional, so what are the conditional NDCs? Conditional NDCs are the ones which require external support. Unconditional NDCs, we can do it on our own. We don't need anybody's help. We will be able to deliver on these unconditional NDCs on our own independently and autonomously. Conditional NDCs are the ones for which we require external support. So even if we do implement both sets of unconditional and conditional NDCs, that would still only reduce emissions by 10%. That would still take us to 2.6 degrees warming above the pre-industrial level, right? So to just give you a context, what is the meaning of this word pre-industrial level over here, right? So we have to compare temperature, let's say tomorrow, with temperature in the past, right? So what is that period in the past with which we can compare the temperature? So that is the pre-industrial level, meaning why that before industrial revolution started across the world was on normal track of climate, let's say, right? That we had not significantly started increasing carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere, greenhouse gas concentration in the atmosphere. We are still in the pre-industrial era, right? and the temperature is as normal as it could have been, as normal as it should have been, had humans not started interfering, right? So that's why we are comparing temperature with the pre-industrial level, which is the time period before which, or the time period during which we have not started adding greenhouse gases to the atmosphere, time period during which we have been monitoring temperature and we have accurate data of temperature of that period. That is the pre-industrial level that we are comparing present and future temperatures with, right? So these are basic things that you need to be aware of. I'm sure you are aware of the same, right? This is extremely important discussion that we are doing because we are warming up for COP29 climate conference, right? So this COP29 is conference of parties, right? So conference of parties 29th meeting will take place. Conference of parties for which particular treaty or which particular agreement? So UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change, right? So UNFCCC का जो conference of parties है, that is going to happen in Azerbaijan in Baku from 11th to 22nd November. And prior to this particular meeting, we have come out with this report, which is obviously talking about dire consequences, right? So there is an increase in greenhouse gas emission, right? It has been above average from 2022 levels, right? So in the decade preceding the COVID-19 pandemic, greenhouse gas emission growth averaged around 0.8% per year. So you can see that of late our greenhouse gas emission has only increased. It has become 1.3% as compared to, let us say, 0.8% per year in the preceding 10 years, right? So we are actually worse off right now as compared to what we were in the previous decade, right? Now, if you want to achieve your target of keeping global warming within 1.5 degrees centigrade of the pre-industrial level, your emissions must fall by 42% by 2030, right? So if you compare by 2019 levels, by the time 2030 comes, you have to make your emissions fall by 42 degrees, 42 percentage points, right? If your targets are not very ambitious, that means that you don't want to achieve this target of keeping global warming up to only 1.5 degree above the pre-industrial level. You're okay with global warming going up to 2 degrees centigrade above the pre-industrial level. Your emissions must still fall by 28%, right? It must still fall by 28%. So these are some of the important numbers that you have to be able to talk about very, very confidently, very, very comfortably, whether you're writing an answer or whether you're writing an essay or whether you are sitting in an interview, right? So climate crunch time is here, right? So what do we need to do? So we need to do global mobilization, right? We need to work at a scale and at a pace at which we have never worked before, right? We need the next round of climate pledges to be very, very serious rounds. Otherwise, this goal, this is going to be unachievable. This goal, this will also become unachievable. That's what the simple takeaway is from this particular article, right? And again, I would really invite you to be able to use this kind of content as value enhancement content in your answers, right? Maximum you need to pick up, 3 or 4 lines from this article, which is going to be good enough. But when you mention it in your answers to stand apart from the crowd, trust me, it will have a very positive impact. All right. So let us move to artificial intelligence. So India's top conglomerates, right? They are tying up with NVIDIA. So this is news in itself. Very, very, very important news. So it's Reliance Industries Limited as well as Tata Group. So they are joining hands with the global chip maker NVIDIA Corp. Right? What is the objective of this partnership? Build out the infrastructure for artificial intelligence applications in the country. Right? This is very, very important. Right? Artificial intelligence applications in the country. Right? So the idea over here is that whether it is NVIDIA, right, or anybody else, the idea is that these partnerships, they will help ensure that India manufactures its own AI and does not export data to import intelligence. This is extremely crucial, right? See, this particular point over here is coming from that same old point that why should India's data go out of India, right? Our data will remain in India. So whether it is data sovereignty or data ownership, right? So we are the ones who are going to process our data. We are the ones who are going to get the intelligence out of our data. We are the ones who are going to develop applications out of our data. Because see, now India is not, your 19th century or 20th century wala India, where you can treat India as a third world country. Under no circumstance is this going to happen. We may have our own challenges, but we are second to none in absolutely anything, in our minds at least, right? And the same thing goes when it comes to the development of artificial intelligence based applications and so on. Because more than anything else, artificial intelligence requires data, and more than anything else, we are producing data, right? So that's the whole idea over here, right? So if you want to lead in artificial intelligence, you need to have AI model technology. You need to have data, massive quantities of data is what Huang is saying, right? So what Jensen Huang is saying can be quoted straight away in your answers, can be quoted straight away in your essays, provided you pick up the most relevant quote. You cannot take 1000 quotations with you in your memory in the examination. You cannot do that. You can barely take, I don't know, 75, 80, 90 quotes in the examination, right? So this is one of those quotes, right? So Nvidia has announced a partnership with Reliance Industries. They had a meeting. Mukesh Ambani, as usual, dressed in his pant shirt, met with Jensen Huang. So that was a very beautiful meeting, right? So our key strength, what they are discussing over here, and this is very relevant, right? That our key strength is that we have a good number of computer scientists, and we can produce as many more computer scientists as we may need, right? So this intelligence industry का जो soft power that is required, or human resource that is required, that is available with us. Enormous amount of data is something that we are producing thanks to the population base, thanks to digital India, and so on and so forth, right? So that is something that we already have, right? So Nvidia, they will be partnering with Reliance to set up a 1 gigawatt data center in Jamnagar, Gujarat, right? So the idea over here is that this would be a scalable project, right? And Nvidia's technology, as it develops, it will be used to power this particular center, this particular set of developments, right? AS Lakshmi Narayanan, Chief Executive of Tata Communications, they also said that network and computing infrastructure provider will adopt Nvidia's latest chip Hopper by the end of the year to power one of the largest supercomputers on cloud in India. So these are significant developments that are happening, right? So Tata Communications, right, they will adopt Nvidia's latest Blackwell chips, right, and so on and so forth, right? So India will become a key revenue generator for the biggest technology companies, right? So this market will therefore be more relevant for big tech, which is again a very good thing. So rising economic power, geopolitical relevance, strategic market, right? Government incentives are available. Private sector is willing to put their money where their mouth is. Massive amounts of data, massive availability of manpower. Put all of these things together, and you will be able to appreciate the importance of all of these developments that are happening. And to pull this particular topic a little further, AI exports a bigger opportunity for India than manufacturing chips, is what Jensen Huang is saying, right? So we should focus more on developing local infrastructure and capabilities for exporting AI than manufacturing semiconductors that power the AI revolution, is what Jensen Huang is saying, right? So the idea over here is that he is saying, and this is something which has been said by others as well, right, that other countries have been manufacturing chips for a long time, right? But no one is manufacturing intelligence. Do something which no one else is doing at this point of time. Do something where your competitive advantage lies in the biggest possible manner, in the strongest possible manner. You all are students of economics. You all understand the meaning of the term relative competitive advantage more than anybody else, right? So before every other country starts doing it, India should do it massively, massively. How many jobs? Chalo, theek hai, chalo, let's do both the things. How many jobs will manufacturing chips create? Not many. How many jobs will manufacturing intelligence create? Lot many, right? So the idea over here is that this is what Jensen Huang is saying, right? And he further goes on to say that this intelligence industry is having a close relationship with the IT industry, right? It is so close, right? So why do you want to do something which is too dramatically different? Like for instance, manufacturing chips is too dramatically different from running an IT industry, but producing intelligence is not too different, right? So given the amount of data that we have, given the fact that we have scientists, given the fact that we have renewable energy to power the computation infrastructure, because all these computation the supercomputers, etc., that you will be needing to create that kind of intelligence, they are extremely power guzzling. And if you think that we want to power these supercomputers with fossil fuel based power plant, that's going to be a disaster going ahead. You can't do that. You need either nuclear or renewable or such kind of power, right? So in that sense, future is in India, right? So India will have this gigantic business opportunity provided that we are willing to pick it up, right? So this is something which is coming out of the discussion with Mukesh Ambani, right? So AI can do 20% of our jobs 1,000 times better, right? So we should use AI for those 20% of the jobs is the basic idea over here, right? So that's what the basic idea is. I think that you understand where this is going, right? I'm sure that you will be able to read this in your own time. I've given you the most important takeaway from this article. Now I'd like to focus my attention on this very important issue of what's happening in India's job market, right? So in India's job market, there is a significant shift that is happening, and we need to talk about the significant shift. So companies, they have started scaling up contract hiring across the hierarchy. So earlier what used to happen was that contract hiring was delegated, or contract hiring was restricted to hiring the entry level jobs, or for hiring jobs which are repetitive in nature, or menial jobs, or those jobs that were typically performed by the informal category of workers, right? But now what you're seeing is that hiring of contract employees is becoming more of a regular affair. So earlier what used to happen was that festive season used to produce a lot of extra demand. So to meet this extra demand for a couple of months, I used to have extra number of bikers, extra number of service providers, extra number of RMs, etc., etc., right? But now what is happening is that contract hiring is become the norm. It is becoming the norm, right? So that new projects can be experimented with, so that the employee costs can be kept under control, right? So that's what's happening over here. So staffing experts, they are saying that this is going to increase by 20%, right? 6 lakhs to 7 lakh jobs will be created in the organized sector, but those will be contract jobs, right? So the idea over here is, okay, that we will be hiring people on a contract for 6 months to a year, right? We are doing this because the project visibility is low. We are doing this because the global economic conditions are not exactly benign, not exactly very stable, right? And companies are essentially reluctant to pay high salaries, commit to providing employee benefits and so on, given the fact that situation is not so sure right now, right? So these contract employees, unfortunately, they get paid lower than regular staff, right? And they do not get the necessary benefits, health insurance, etc., that maybe your regular employees or fixed employees may be getting, right? So the idea over here is that uh, consumer spending is low, right? Even the permanent recruitment BSFSI, right, that is also low, right? Companies, they are not accelerating on hiring. They would rather recruit contract employees in 1 year roles rather than give full-time jobs, right? So be it your FMCG, e-commerce, quick commerce, right? They are the ones who are, accelerating a lot on contract staffing, right? So that's what the idea over here is. That's what something that you need to keep in mind. Okay. So companies, they typically maintain permanent to contract staff ratio of 70:30 or 50:50, right? So if there are short-term projects, they will fill up with contract segment first, right? Now this seems to be increasing little bit more in the favor of contract for employment, right? So we are going into smaller cities, you're opening franchise operators, right? So given the fact that all of these new changes are happening, right? So that's why there is this preference that smaller cities, franchise operators, you don't know how things are going to exactly pan out, hence contract hiring, right? So that's the whole idea over here, right? So why do people get hired as contract workers? Because see, the idea is that I at least get to learn something, prove myself, and once I have learned something, proved myself, then I can always push for being a permanent employee. So this may be a stage of transition where you're actually trying to pull people out of unemployment or underemployment and put them into these kinds of roles. So everybody is experimenting, and I'm not necessarily saying that this is a very bad thing, that this is something that we need to be deeply worried about, right? Of course, nobody wants to do these jobs, that's a separate problem. But when the choice is there between not doing anything and doing this job, then doing this job is a better choice, better option than not doing anything else at all, right? So that's what the idea over here is, right? That if these companies want to expand into smaller towns, if they want to experiment into newer fields, then contract staffing helps them in keeping their burn under control. Burn meaning the expenditure that you're doing on a per month basis, right? That's what the idea over here is. Even a company such as Adani, Wilmar, etc., and these FMCG companies, very stable companies, very strong bottom line companies, even they are relying more on contract hiring, right? So that's what the idea over here is, right? That this is the need of the hour, okay? And whether it is any kind of distribution company now, they are looking at this as a very good option. All right. So that's about it, I guess, right? Technology companies, GCCs, right? So they are also signing up temporary manpower, right? So that's again a very important point to note, that it's not just your entry level gray collar jobs, etc. Again, the macro visibility is poor, right? IT and GCC clients, they want contract workforce. That's what CEO and co-founder of CareerNet, a talent solution provider, is saying, right? Notice period of contract workforce, that's often just few weeks, right? Versus 2 to 3 months of permanent employees, right? So they can be hired and fired that much more quickly. Of course, this can be a very painful affair for the employees concerned, right? So at the initial stage of setting up the base, there is a clear preference for contract employees over permanent manpower, right? So that's the idea over here. And I think that you will have to be okay with this kind of flexibility, because somebody is expanding, somebody is trying to do something new, somebody is setting up the shop for the first time, somebody is not sure of the project, somebody is not sure of the macros. So do you want to tell them that the only option that you have is that of hiring permanent employees, and if you don't want to hire permanent employees, please don't do business in India? If you want to say that, then you are going to say no to a lot of good businesses in India. And this is where the original debate came from, that what should we right now focus on? Should we right now focus on creating good jobs, or should we focus on creating a good number of jobs for as many people as we can, and then going ahead slowly and steadily as people start learning the skills, people start proving themselves, people start opening opportunities up for themselves, they will gradually transition, naturally transition into good jobs. So first good number of jobs and then good jobs. What should be first, good jobs or good number of jobs? So one side of people will say that good jobs, one another side of people will say good number of jobs, right? So I think that India doesn't have a lot of choice right now. We need to go for a good number of jobs for as many people as we can, and take things ahead wherever it goes, as it goes, while the government of India is already putting into place strong social security net, right? Whether it is pension, whether it is insurance, whether it is cash transfer, whether it is scholarships, right? A lot of things are being done by the government of India to improve the safety, to improve the security for a wide swath of our population, and not just informal workers, right? So that's my submission to you today, right? Four very newsy articles, but articles which you can actually use in answers as value addition points for anything that you will come across. We'll meet again tomorrow. Tomorrow is Saturday, so we'll be spending time discussing government schemes, right? With this, we'll bring this session to an end. Thank you so much. All the best, and Jai Hind to all of you. Bye bye.